following is a presentation of the Belly Up Sports Media Network.
Here's what's cooking on today's Sports Stove Football Show. We got all kinds of things to talk about. Draft picks, coaching changes, playoffs, college football playoffs, NFL playoffs. Jim Mora's got to be going out of his mind. That's what's cooking on today's Sports Stove Football Show. Welcome in to an all-new edition of the Sports Stove Football Show presented by Righteous Felon Jerky. Join the flavor revolution at righteousfelon.com. Use the promo code STOVE15, STOVE15, to get 15% off your purchase. I'm Vince Stover. I am joined, as I am every week, by my dad, Dale Stover. Dad, happy playoffs. How you doing?
Well, I tell you, boy, a lot going on. We're at crunch time here in football, both in college and the NFL, and just all kinds of stuff going on, and it'll be that way for a while. But, of course, it's always exciting on Black Monday and then see the fallout from that. And, boy, there's a lot of names. So
we're at the pinnacle of the football season, and yet the offseason is already taking over in the NFL, and that's where we're going to start today. Let's start with the draft order, as half the draft is set. The Tennessee Titans locked down pick number 1, followed by Cleveland, the New York Giants, New England, and Jacksonville to round out the top 5. Las Vegas, the Jets, Panthers, Saints, and Bears round out the top 10. I asked a question this week on Twitter, with the Titans securing the first overall pick, who should they select? I gave the options of Shedeur Sanders, Cam Ward, Travis Hunter, and other. Well, it was a tie, Dad, at 41%. Cam Ward and Travis Hunter is who people think the Titans should be selecting in number 1 overall. We still got a ways to go before we have to do our mock drafts, but Cam Ward impressed me with Miami's bowl game, and I'm interested to see kind of where things land on this. Titans at number 1, they have to pick a quarterback, right?
Yeah, I mean, if there's, I think so. You would think there's at least one of these 3 or 4 quarterbacks that have a chance to be what you have there. I think anytime. Yeah, they just don't have good options otherwise, a quarterback. I think, anytime you're at the first pick, if you don't have to take a quarterback and you can get enough capital, to move,
sure.
I mean, the Titans could use a lot of stuff. So if they could get 3 or 4, quality players out of draft picks, that wouldn't be a bad move either, but you have to have a quarterback. So I think if they feel like there's a quarterback that they can take and can fill that gap, then, that's probably what they ought to do. Depending on, as we get closer to the draft, who wants to move up, what can they offer? Are there people that have multiple first round picks? What could happen there? The Titans could use an influx. I think they have a good coach. They're going to work on getting a new general manager. So we'll see how that goes. I do think you have an owner that kind of leaves you alone. I guess it looks like there's a president or head of football operations that'll actually be over the GM and the coach. A guy named Brinker, and I guess he worked for the Packers for 13 years. So that's kind of an interesting connection there too.
Yeah, I mean, you said it. They got to have the answer at quarterback. So whether it's draft 1, sign 1, trade for 1, and maybe they can trade for one that they like and trade out of draft pick number 1 and accumulate some more draft capital. I don't know, but they sit there at number 1. They got a while to figure out what they're going to do with it. For sure. Moving on to the Black Monday and all the changes going on around the coaching world. 6 teams have fired their coaches now. The Jets, Saints, Bears, Patriots, Jaguars, and Raiders log into that. The Bengals and Colts fired their defensive coordinators. The Seahawks fired their offensive coordinator. 49ers fired their special teams coach. And the Titans fired their GM. Of course, the Jets have already fired their GM also. So plenty of jobs out there. As of an hour ago, 31 names have been put into the candidate hat for head coaching jobs between the 6 teams. And there are some interesting ones, Dad. The Jets, first of all, the go-tos this year, Mike Vrabel, Ben Johnson, Aaron Glenn, Joe Brady getting a lot of attention as well, are kind of the main guys. You're seeing a few other guys. Kellen Moore's got a few interviews lined up. Anthony Weaver, Mike Kafka as well. Arthur Smith has a couple of interviews lined up. David Shaw, the former Stanford coach, with a couple of interviews lined up. Steve Spagnuolo now has a couple of interviews as well. But you got some interesting names, especially for the Jets. Vrabel, Glenn, Brady all make sense. Matt Nagy, that one makes sense. He has head coaching experience and has continued to do well in Kansas City. Brian Flores, head coaching experience. Josh McCown, Arthur Smith, Ron Rivera, Rex Ryan, Brian Greasy, Vance Joseph, Bobby Slowick, and then Jeff Ulbrich, the interim coach, gets a nod as well. Steve Spagnuolo also recently listed there in New York. Dad, I mean, the guys like Rex Ryan and Brian Greasy just don't make sense to me.
No, I mean, Rex Ryan doesn't make, sense at all. I don't know why. But again, the Jets, right now, the Jets and making sense, there's been a lot of dysfunction. So you would think they want to build a football team. And if they do, then I don't think Rex Ryan is your answer. They don't have the player. They've got some good players, but they don't have everybody there ready to go. So, they're going to need their culture to be squared away. They're going to have to get a quarterback. Rex Ryan is kind of a circus comes to town anyhow. Yeah. And that's probably not what the Jets need right now. So that one doesn't make any sense. Outside of Vrabel, you got a lot of young guys that, and that's kind of where everybody's been going with their coaches, up and coming young guys, offensive guys. So we'll see.
Well, yeah, and actually with the Jets, it's not a lot of young guys, though, because they got a lot of guys with experience on their list. So you've got Vrabel, Matt Nagy has experience, Flores has experience, Arthur Smith has experience, Ron Rivera has experience, Ryan has experience, Vance Joseph has experience as a head coach. All of those guys do in the NFL. So there is experience there. They have a defensive set that if they want to go back old school, run the football and play good defense, you bring in a good defensive mind like a Vrabel, Spagnuolo even makes sense for that kind of thing too. Josh McCown is a guy that they kind of flirted with before. He was the backup quarterback there, and there seem to see a lot of people think he has great potential as a head coach down the road too. So I wouldn't be surprised by that one. Sounds like Vrabel was the first choice, but I mean, if he doesn't end up with the Patriots, I'll be shocked. And so we'll see how that one shakes down. The Saints also looking at Vrabel, Glenn, Joe Brady. Then they've got Kellen Moore, Anthony Weaver, Mike Kafka, their interim coach Darren Rizzi, and David Shaw lined up for interviews. Aaron Glenn, to me, this has been from the time they fired Allen. Aaron Glenn was the answer. Played there, coached there. He's been great in Detroit as the defensive coordinator. So he understands. Joe Brady, though, is interesting, too, because he was at LSU with Joe Burrow. Didn't have a great start to his NFL coaching career, but now he's in Buffalo and looking really good there, of course, as well. But I think Aaron Glenn's the answer in New Orleans. And I think New Orleans is like right in the middle of the pack of these jobs. They've got some decent players, but they got some older players that are really good. I don't think they have the answer at quarterback yet either. Kamara's on the back end of his career. I don't know, Dad. The Saints, at first I thought were a great job, but I'm not sure they're they're not in the top 2, in my opinion, in jobs available right now.
Yeah, you're right. They're probably about the middle of the pack. I think, there's, as far as going to an organization where there's some stability, and where the coach, I think, will be able to control things. But looking at these candidates, I agree. Glenn makes a lot of sense there. And I think he definitely ought to be one of the coaches out of this bunch, no doubt about that. And New Orleans would make a lot of sense for him. So we will see. I know we'll talk about all these, but obviously, the number one name is, Johnson. Do you think that he needs to get hired somewhere before a lot of these others will move because everybody's going to wants to interview him, or do you think we'll have some movement before he gets hired?
So Johnson actually is, from what I have seen, is only on 3 teams' lists. So Glenn has 5 interviews lined up. Vrabel has 4. Johnson has 3. I think Vrabel's the top one on the list, honestly. In my opinion, he's number 1. Now, that being said, Johnson is the best offensive coach available. But I think Vrabel and Glenn are right there with him, and they're both more defensive-minded coaches. I like Johnson way better than Joe Brady because I think his experience is more than what Joe Brady has. But, I mean, I think Mike Vrabel, Aaron Glenn, Ben Johnson, and Joe Brady are all head coaches by the time these searches get over. But, no, I don't think Johnson's the one driving the market. I think it's Vrabel is really the one that's ultimately driving the market right now. Johnson, he comes up in our next conversation about Chicago because, again, they need someone they can pair with Caleb Williams. They need someone that can make things happen there. Now, can Vrabel or Glenn or Anthony Weaver give you a good staff and bring in offensive minds to help? Sure. I just think if the Bears were smart, they'd go offensive and lean towards Ben Johnson, Todd Monken, somebody like that. They're interviewing Pete Carroll, which is interesting. They're interviewing Matt Campbell, the Iowa State head coach, who has been propped up every year in coaching candidates. They wanted to interview Mike McCarthy. That got shot down by Dallas. Drew Pertzig comes over. He's at Arizona, offensive coordinator. That one makes sense for the Bears, but for nothing else. Mike Kafka again in that listing. Arthur Smith in that listing. The Bears are not going to hire the best coach available. That's just not what they do. And so I don't think Ben Johnson ends up here. I think it is a Drew Pertzing, maybe even an Arthur Smith, maybe a Matt Campbell, maybe even Pete Carroll, which would be interesting at the very least. But, Dad, the Bears, they did not fire Ryan Poles, the GM. And so you can just continue to expect the Bears to make mistakes until that job gets changed as well. Of these names, Dad, Vrabel, Johnson, Glenn, Weaver, Kafka, Flores, Smith, all these guys, which one concerns you as a Packer fan, if any?
I mean, Johnson I don't think Johnson's going to go to Chicago. I just don't see that in a whole lot of ways. He would be the only one that would concern me a whole lot. Vrabel might, but I don't think Vrabel's going to the Bears either. From there, Pete Carroll, that wouldn't concern me necessarily. And, the others are going to be, new coaches. And again, like you said, they didn't change the GM. So what is the structure there? How's the whole thing going to be? I don't think the Bears are coming out of the season very positive from a locker room standpoint. Now, maybe, you get the coach with the right, mindset and can change the culture. But, I don't know. Some of these wide receivers that got paid a lot, to me, didn't overachieve. And that happens a lot when people get paid. Yeah. So, we'll see where it goes. The quarterback's got potential, but only for another year. If he gets sacked 1,000 times again, he'll be done here pretty quick. So, we'll see how it goes. And like you said, they need to protect him, but you got the same guy drafting. So, we'll see how that goes.
Agreed. New England's looking, again, if Mike Vrabel doesn't end up here, I'll be shocked. But they're also interviewing Ben Johnson, Aaron Glenn, Byron Leftwich, and Pep Hamilton. I think Pep Hamilton's the dark horse here. A lot of experience in the league, well-respected in the league, and would be an interesting hire. He works with quarterbacks well. So that'd be really interesting. I think Vrabel, though, has to be the number one pick here just with his ties there in New England.
Yes, that makes sense. He's got ties with the owner. The fan base will be all about that. He is a good coach. He's got a young quarterback. They got a good draft, spot. I think that would make a lot of sense. Again, the Patriots, the deal was there's a, Patriot Way or whatever, and he was a part of that. So, that sure seems like that would make the most sense.
And put me on record as saying Jared Mayo shouldn't have been fired.
Yeah.
I just don't understand that one at all. My goodness, give the guy a shot. And Elliot Wolf's in office now at the GM. I believe in him. Obviously, his dad was phenomenal, or is just his granddad. Either way,
it was his dad. Yeah,
yeah, and he's got the pedigree there to do it. Give him time. Maybe he wanted Mayo gone so he could work with somebody more that he hands picks. I don't know, but give him time to put together a roster. I think good things can come here in New England. Jacksonville, Dad, I think it's the best job available. Quarterback, running back, receivers, some really solid defensive players. Candidates here, not a whole lot of head coaching experience. Ben Johnson, which I think is the perfect fit. Aaron Glenn, Joe Brady, Kellen Moore, Todd Monken, Robert Saleh, Liam Cohen, and Patrick Graham. Liam Cohen comes from Tampa. He was at Kentucky. So I saw a lot about him here living in Lexington. I don't think he's ready to be a head coach yet, in my opinion. I think he's a perfect fit as an offensive coordinator. Patrick Graham, I'm really intrigued by. He was the defensive coordinator at Vegas. I think he should be the next head coach at Vegas. And so I'm intrigued by that personally. But I think Ben Johnson's this is the fit for him in Jacksonville. Having a quarterback, having some talented, offensive players in place, plus some good defensive players too.
Yeah, I would agree. I think it's the best job of the ones there, the 6 that are available right now. And it seems like that would be a good spot for Johnson. From what I understand, he wants control. I think he'll go in. Again, he would have a quarterback, to work with and develop. It just seems like that would make a lot of sense. Yeah. I think several teams are going to try to get him. So depending on what's offered in the situation, but when you talk about having a quarterback, you can develop everything there. I guess you've also talked about Brady developing quarterbacks, so maybe that would be a good spot from there also if they didn't get Johnson. But that seems like that would be an awfully good fit.
Yeah, to me, Brady and Liam Cohen are kind of in the same boat. I just think they're really good as offensive coordinators, and I'm not sure that they're ready. I don't know. I don't know that they can demand the whole locker room, the respect that they need as a head coach personally. That's just me. I don't know them personally, things like that. So, but yeah, that'd be the fallback offensively. Kellen Moore too. Honestly, he spent time in Kansas or in Dallas and Philadelphia. Now he's a quarterback at heart. So, maybe, but I like Ben Johnson to Jacksonville. The Raiders opened up more recently. Steve Spagnuolo is the only name I've seen there so far. Again, I think Patrick Graham, who was the defensive coordinator, should be considered for this job as well. But, Dad, Vegas waited an extra day before they fired Antonio Pierce. Again, you didn't give the guy any time. But I'm not a fan of hiring the interim coach. You get that emotional high with him. I think you need to move on from him. I wonder if Rich Bisaccia will come up. I wonder if his name will pop back up in Vegas, the special teams coordinator at Green Bay. He had, a good time in Vegas. So, but right now we'll see what the Raiders end up doing. They need a quarterback too. I'm not sure the Raiders are, I'd put them last or second to last on this job search right now out of the 6, maybe behind the Saints or maybe in front of the Saints. I'm not sure. I like the other jobs a little bit better than Vegas.
Yeah, Vegas will be an interesting spot, and like I said, it'd be interesting to see what they do because they've done interesting things when they didn't hire Bisaccia and then had Pierce, and so I don't know. I think any number of these people, it might be good for them to go with somebody that has some head coaching experience, but. Exactly what they'll do. Like I said, they're definitely rebuilding. They do have some good pieces, here and there. And so that will be kind of an interesting one to watch.
Yeah, I agree. Dad, let's head over to the playoffs and look at what's going on in the NFL playoffs.
Let me ask about one, because I looked at these different coaching people, and one that I don't know a lot about but seemed intriguing to me, and he's on people's list, is this David Shaw.
Yeah.
That coached at Stanford and then now is in the executive role, I guess, somewhat in Denver. That seems like that's a good combination of stuff there. That could be a guy that would lend stability. What do you know about him? Or it seems like a coach that needs a team that needs somebody to come in and really stabilize the culture. This guy might have the experience to do that.
Yeah, I'm not sold on him as an NFL head coach. I think as an advisor, an assistant, a guy that can be there really to help the head coach makes sense to me. He came into Stanford following Harbaugh, had some success there, and was a good coach there for sure. I don't know. I think he's a great guy. I think you're right. Stability is there. To me, he fits more in that assistant role, kind of management role, more so than coaching. That's how I feel about him. But that being said, who am I? So he had success at Stanford. He also had failure at Stanford, which many coaches have had success and failure at stops before, having more success. So does that mean anything? I guess it doesn't. But yeah, I'm not high on him as an NFL head coach, but I think he would be great to have around a program like what he's been doing here the last couple of years.
Okie doke. Just wondering a little bit about him. So
yeah. All right, let's head over to the playoffs. Dad, I put out a poll question earlier this week. Which of these wild card teams do you think is the most likely to win the Super Bowl? And I gave 4 options: Denver, the Chargers, the Packers, or the Commanders. The poll was close. 35% won the poll for the Commanders, 23% for the Packers and Chargers, and 19% for the Broncos. Obviously, I did not include the Vikings in this list, and I also did not include the Steelers in this list because they've lost, 5 straight now. So I went with the Broncos, Chargers, Packers, Commanders. Of those 4 teams, Dad, who do you think is most likely to run the gauntlet here and make it to the Super Bowl?
Well, I think if any of those teams actually win the Super Bowl, it would be quite a deal. I think Green Bay's got the best shot. They've got a hard game to start with, no doubt about that. And again, have had some injuries. And again, I'm a Packer fan. But if I was choosing from them, maybe Washington. But again, they've got a rookie quarterback. So we'll see how that goes. They're good. And they've definitely got a coach that's got things going in the right direction here now, no doubt about that. Again, I don't. The Chargers have played well and done well, but I wouldn't think that's a Super Bowl team. So, if I was going to vote for one of those 4, I'd vote for the Packers. But I don't know that any of them is going to get to the Super Bowl.
Okay, all right. Let's get to the games and pick these winners for this week. Starting off is on Saturday, 4:30 in the afternoon on CBS. The Houston Texans host the Los Angeles Chargers. Dad, we started this year by you saying Jim Harbaugh was the worst coach in the history of the world. He brings his team to 11 wins, to the playoffs, and he gets a favorable matchup against a team that really hasn't been playing that great, not consistent. C.J. Stroud went backwards this year. So an interesting matchup here because of all the matchups in the AFC, this was kind of seemed to be the one that people wanted was to get the Houston Texans. The Chargers are 3-point favorites on the road in this game, Dad, at Houston. How you feeling about Chargers and Texans?
Well, I think it'll be the Texans at home. I don't know how far Texans are going to go, but I think they can win this game at home. Again, the Chargers have played well, so it should be a really good football game. Has potential to be there, but I think Houston will come ready to play. And again, they've underachieved a little bit here, especially in the last half of the year. Haven't played necessarily extremely well. They had some injuries. I know they've got some guys back, the wide receiver now. And so, we'll see. C.J. Stroud, see how he plays in the playoffs. Of course, Herbert's very good. And the Chargers do have some good defense. So, but again, I think the home field will help Houston on this one, and it may be a close one, but I would pick Houston.
Okay, so I really like Houston. I like CJ Stroud. I like the coaching staff. I like the talent that they have. I want Houston to win, Dad, but I really just don't think they are. I think the Chargers are hitting their stride right now, and health is definitely an issue for sure. But the way Ladd McConkey's been playing as of late has really helped out Herbert. The defense has been really, really good, and we just haven't seen consistency out of Houston. Now, granted, they don't need to be consistent. They just need to have one good game here. But I'm going to go with the Chargers in this game. And I think that right now they're playing better football than Houston is. And again, I think Jim Harbaugh is a really good coach. He finds a way to win games. So I'm going to go with the Chargers. I'll go opposite of you on this one with the Chargers. Saturday night is a AFC North game, the Ravens and the Steelers. Ravens are hosting this game. They're 9.5-point favorites, and man, the Steelers fell apart at the end of this season. They have lost their last 4 games to Philadelphia, Baltimore, Kansas City, and Cincinnati. Granted, all those are good teams, but guess what? They're playing one of those teams in the Baltimore Ravens this week, Dad. And I think you and I both think the Ravens are playing some really good football right now. I'm going Baltimore in this game, especially being at home. Which way do you lean?
Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, Pittsburgh was sure looking good early, but they have really stumbled. And Baltimore, like I said, is really playing well. And they're at home. Everything is set up for them to make a little bit of a run here. And being it's the Steelers they're playing, they're not going to look past them. That's a division team. So I would think Baltimore would win this one.
Yeah, playing a team 3 times in a year. We've seen that many a times as Packer fans and just football fans. You see it often as well. It does add a little bit of intrigue to it. The Ravens at home won 34-17, and then the Steelers at home won 18-16. If I remember right, that was a really ugly weather day. Since they split it, it gives me more confidence that the Ravens win this game than if the Ravens had beat them both times in the regular season as well. Sunday first game is another AFC game, so we'll get all the AFC games out of the way first. The Bills hosting the Broncos. The Broncos have had a great season. They've had this Bo Nix has been really, really good. Sean Payton has proven he can coach again. But the Bills, the best, second best, according to the seeding, they're the second best in the AFC. I might put them above Kansas City right now with how they're playing, personally, at the very least. And I've not believed in Denver all year long, so why start now? I'm going Buffalo in this game at home. How do you feel this game's going to go, Buffalo and Denver?
Well, Buffalo should win this one at home. Again, they've got to be careful. They can't look past this. Denver, wins with defense in a lot of ways. Bo Nix has done well. Denver's should come into this game. They have nothing to lose. I don't think anybody thinks they're going to win. I heard someone on the radio talk about they were ranking the playoff teams and they forgot Denver was even in the playoffs. So I think everybody's discounted Denver. Denver's not going anywhere. And a lot of teams discounted them this year and got beat. So I think Buffalo has to be careful. But boy, Josh Allen's had a great year. Again, I think they've got a good coach. Their coach needs to have a good year this year, and so far he has. So I would pick Buffalo in this, but if there's going to be a real upset, this is the one you have to watch for.
Okay, but you're picking Buffalo.
Yes.
Okay, all right. Just to be clear on that one, yeah. You look at the coaches, right? Sean Payton is probably the better coach in this game, and that can pay dividends in a game like this, for sure. And so we'll see how this one shakes down. I got Buffalo. They are 8.5-point favorites in this game as well. Next up is the 4:30 game. That is the Philadelphia Eagles hosting the Green Bay Packers. Philadelphia 4.5-point favorites here at home. All signs point to Jalen Hurts playing. He started to practice again today. He's been in concussion protocol for a while. Dad, obviously, these teams met up very first game of the season down in Brazil and or in Sao Paulo. And the Eagles won by a score. A close game, neutral site. Now you're going to Philadelphia, tough place to play. And again, if Jalen Hurts is back, that definitely helps the Eagles as well. How do you feel about Green Bay and Philadelphia?
Well, this was a tough draw for Green Bay, but that's what happened. I don't think the first game that way back, the first game of the year, you really draw much from that. I think you have to look at where you have here. It was kind of like I talked about Denver. If Green Bay can come into this thing loose, and because again, Philadelphia's played really good football this year. And, they're by far one of the best teams in the NFC, probably in the whole tournament. The fact that, Hurts has been out for 3 weeks, so there's a lot of questions, will there be rust? How will that go? Obviously, they got Saquon Barkley, who's had a phenomenal year. Green Bay's defense in some ways has been better this year. They've been able to play against some running backs, but again, Barkley's going to be good. Green Bay's had quite a running game with Josh Jacobs also. So I think may come down to who can run the ball, who can get ahead, who can control the game here a little bit. I think Green Bay could surprise. We had 2 defensive guys back at practice today, which would be a big deal if they can both play. From there, I think Jordan Love's going to be fine to play. I think both teams are playing it a little funny with the quarterback. Is Jordan Love really going to, be ready to go? Is Jalen Hurts? We'll see. We'll see how that goes. I think they'll both be there and both be playing well. When you said they're favored by 4, doesn't that surprises me a little bit that they're not favored by more than that, being at home. So I think people do give Green Bay a chance to be in this game, and it could be a really good football game. We'll see. LaFleur, has had his issues here lately, but Philadelphia's coach, you just don't ever know about that either. So again, I think if Green Bay can stay close and make this a pressure game, then things can happen. Philadelphia, the crowd will be very much an advantage in a lot of ways. But again, if this game's close, Philadelphia's fans always react kind of funny too. So we'll see how it goes. I'm optimistic the Packers can play with them. And, I'll pick the Packers, but that's because I'm a Packer fan. And, if you look at history, hey, last time we won the Super Bowl, we were the last seed. Everything started in Philadelphia. Don't think that means much, but hey, it can make you wish well.
Yeah, that was a long way to get to. I hope the Packers win. So I'm going to pick them. The Hurts playing gives an extra boost to the Eagles. They're beat up at quarterback. Pickett's injured as well. The third string has looked really good last week. Saquon Barkley's amazing. Probably offensive player of the year, if not the MVP. Defense has been solid again for Philadelphia. They've won 4 out of their last 5, whereas Green Bay has only won 2 of their last 5. Jordan Love is not on the injury report, so he's playing. So that kind of takes some of the intrigue away from there. Dad, at the end of the day, the Eagles are the better team. They're the top seed here. They're number 2. So for that reason, I'm picking the Green Bay Packers because I'm a Packer fan, and I believe that they can win too. I still remember, Dad, was it 4th and 22? And that was against the Eagles. Playoff game.
4th and 23. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. I was driving actually in Milwaukee, listening to the game on the radio with my then girlfriend, now wife, in the car with me, traveling back from somewhere, and listening to it on the radio. And I thought, you've got to be kidding me. So we still need some good recompense from that game there. as well. All right, so we both picked the Packers, even though we both kind of sound like we think the Eagles are going to win this game. We're putting our trust and confidence in Green Bay this week as fans, no doubt. The Sunday night game is the Commanders and the Bucks. Buccaneers host this game. They're 3-point favorites here at home. This is got to be the closest, in my opinion, the game outside of the Packer game that I'm most looking forward to. Baker Mayfield's electric. Jaden Daniels is phenomenal. Irving has been great for Tampa. Great story this week with Mike Evans getting the 1,000 yards as well. Scary Terry's one of my favorite non-Packer players in the league. Has been awesome this year with 13 touchdowns. Jaden Daniels not only is a phenomenal passer, he leads his team in rushing as well with 891 yards. He's the rookie of the year this year. Tampa, as good as they are, I mean, listen, they're a 10-win team. They win the division. They've got some great veterans. I like their coaching staff, but Dad, this Washington team, my goodness, they just seem destined for greatness right now. But a rookie quarterback in the playoffs is always a scary thing. So how are you leaning with Washington and Tampa?
I'm leaning with Washington. I just think, again, Tampa has had a good year, but they've been up and down. Washington, again, they're a young team. They've got a coach that knows what he's doing. They've got a good quarterback. And again, I think they can come in ready to play. And, there'll be a handful for Tampa. And I think Washington can win this. So I'll pick Washington.
All right. I'm trying to look real quick. I needed actually to expound a little longer on that one, so that would help me out. Let me see if I can find what I'm looking for. Let's see here. Oh my goodness, I can't find what I'm looking for. Okay, here it is. So this year, Tampa Bay is 10-7 against the spread. And Washington is 10-6-1 against the spread. So they're even. I was going to look and see if Tampa had covered so many games, then they're 3-point favorite. That would make sense. But they're even. As a matter of fact, Washington's slightly better. Now, Washington, of course, could cover and not win. That being said, man, Dad, I hate picking against Baker Mayfield. I've been on that Baker train. But I love what Washington did this offseason. I love what they've done this season. I don't know that I trust the rookie quarterback. If I were a gambling man, I would probably stay far away from this game, but I'm not. So I'm going to pick Washington in this game also, Dad. I like the coaching staff, the quarterback, the talent that's there. And the Bucks just seemed in that week, this last week in their game, I watched the whole game. They just seemed like a team this was it for them, in that game. They didn't seem like they had a whole lot left. So for that reason, I'm going to go Washington on Sunday night. But I'm looking forward to that game. It's going to be a fun one to watch. Now, I said that one's going to be the best game, the closest game, all that kind of stuff. But the reality is Vikings-Rams is the closest spread. The Vikings are a 1-point favorite on the road Monday night against the Rams. If the game cannot be played in Los Angeles due to the fires, it'll move to Arizona, to Phoenix, to be played there, which would mean the Dennis Green Bowl at that point, being down there in Arizona. But Dad, the Vikings have been so good. They couldn't knock off the Lions to win the division, to be the 1 seed, but they're 14-3, and they're a favorite going on the road against Los Angeles. I know that you don't believe in the Vikings, but how do you feel about this game?
Well, Minnesota should win this. They've played well. I think the coach will have them ready to play. They do have to bounce back a little bit because they really had a big game. I'm sure they were geared up, with the idea of being able to be the number 1 seed, and that didn't happen. But I think their draw against the Rams have been very, very inconsistent, and Minnesota has played well. So I would think, I think Minnesota should win this game. I would expect them to. The only thing would be is if they just, they haven't bounced back from that loss last week. But again, they've got an awfully good coach, and I would think they'll have the mindset that, hey, we can make a run, we can get a chance to play the Lions again, and go from there. So I'll pick Minnesota.
Okay, I'm surprised by that. I also am picking Minnesota. seemed like you were a little higher on the Rams this year than I was. I mean, I wouldn't mind the Rams winning this game, but
Oh yeah, that's true.
but yeah, I'm picking Minnesota also this week. So we basically match up everywhere with the exception of Houston and the Chargers. We both pick Baltimore, Buffalo, Green Bay, Washington, Minnesota. But you go Houston, and I go the Chargers in that game. And so we'll see how this playoffs. I'm looking forward to it. It's gonna be a fun playoff weekend, right?
Yeah, this will be a fun weekend with the playoffs, and there should be some really good football games. So we'll see. Hope people are safe in Los Angeles, and maybe they'll be able to play the game there, get things back under control. If not, it'd be an interesting game there in Phoenix. So,
all right. So that's the NFL weekend ahead. That's not the only playoffs going on right now, Dad. The college football playoffs are continuing to go on, and we're down to the final four. Texas and Ohio State playing in the Cotton Bowl, and Penn State and Notre Dame playing in the Orange Bowl. And Penn State Notre Dame's the first game up on the 9th. And Dad, Notre Dame is a 1.5-point favorite in this game. Penn State has looked good, and now there's a lot of talk about their quarterback maybe even being a first-round pick. So even though he has already announced he's going back to Penn State, but there's rumor he might still enter the draft. Maybe that is on the weighing on the minds right now of Penn State Nittany Lions, or maybe Notre Dame really is this good at 13-1. Dad, how do you feel about Notre Dame and Penn State in the Capital One Orange Bowl?
Well, I think it should be a very good football game. Should be very close. Notre Dame, a little surprised they've made the run that they have. But boy, they've looked impressive in a lot of their games. Penn State has been good, I think, all year. From there, I'm going to pick Penn State. I'd be fine with Notre Dame winning. I know television would be fine with Notre Dame being in the championship. That would be for sure. We'll see who wins the other game, but we could have two Big Ten teams in the finals, which again, people that are Big Ten fans, we're fine with that, but I don't know, nationally where that would be. But to me, Penn State's just a very solid team. And if Notre Dame wins this one, there's no question, boy, they've had quite the team this year. So we'll see. But I would think I'd have to pick Penn State.
These are two teams that I haven't believed in this year. So it makes it hard for me as I'm eating crow on it. And I don't know, Dad, because I still don't really trust either team. I'm going to pick Notre Dame in this game. I just like them better. I like their coach better. Not a Franklin fan whatsoever. There is some veteran presence there on Notre Dame as well. I don't love either of these teams. And even though Notre Dame's 13-1, even though Penn State's 13-2, I don't know, Dad. I'm going to go Notre Dame in this game. Though that'll be my pick, and we'll see how it shakes down. They are the favorite, so that's got to mean something, right? Let's go to the other game on the 10th. It is Texas and Ohio State. This is the Cotton Bowl, which seems like a little bit of a leaning towards Texas, but Ohio State's been the hot hand, and they're 5.5-point favorites against Texas as well, even though it's at AT&T Stadium. How you feeling about Ohio State and Texas? I know you're getting brainwashed up there in Ohio. How you feeling about this game?
Well, like I said, living here in Ohio, I did see Ohio State play a lot, and I knew they were a good team. They're very good, and they're hot right now. They're on a run. Texas is a good team. Texas is well coached too, but it looks like Ohio State really has the momentum. I don't think playing there in Dallas will be a problem for them at all. And just the way they've been playing and the talent they have. But again, Texas is good too. So this could be a very good game. I will pick Ohio State, and I think they've got a good shot here. It seems like when, the loss to Michigan really kind of supercharged them. That's the game that you have to win up here. And when they didn't, it was like that really woke them up. and they've been ready to play. I've handled two very impressive games in the playoffs. So I believe they'll be ready to play here against Texas.
I mean, they've scored 30 or more points in every game since November the 9th. And the one exception is Michigan, where they only scored 10. In the playoffs, they put up 42 against Tennessee, 41 against Oregon, and now they're playing this Texas team as well. So, I mean, you look at these guys. I mean, Texas, they won a double overtime game against Arizona State last week. They handled Clemson just fine. They lost to Georgia in the SEC championship game. I'm picking Texas, though, Dad. Again, Will Howard is a problem for me. I just don't love Will Howard. And he's played great. He's got the stats. There's no reason for me to be against Will Howard, but I am. And I just don't believe in Will Howard. The interesting thing, though, Dad, is for Texas, if Quinn Ewers struggles early, like they've already said Archie Manning's the quarterback next year. So, it wouldn't take much to go to him very quickly, I don't think. But Ewers has a chance here to establish himself. He has a chance to put himself back in the first round of the draft. He has a chance to make a lot of money staying in college next year if he wants to. This game means a lot for his future for sure. Ohio State has so much talent, but so does Texas. I think Ohio State is about to hit a buzzsaw. I think it's going to be a good game. I think it's going to be a close game. And that's why I think Ohio State's going to struggle, because I'm not sure that they handled the stress well in close games. So I'm going to go Texas in this game. So we'll go opposite of each other in both of these playoff games. Penn State for you and Ohio State for you. I'm going to go Notre Dame and Texas in these games also. But I really do think both of these games have potential to be really, really entertaining football games.
Yeah, they really should be. I think this playoff has been what you hoped it would be at this point, what I hoped it would be, and I think these games will continue that.
All righty, there you go. College football and the NFL on this episode of the Sports Stove Football Show as well. Dad, any other college football news or things you want to discuss?
Not college football. On the pro football level, there's two teams right now looking for GMs, and I don't know if there's going to be any others. When you hear people looking about the GM, a lot of it, I know at least one of them said, the priority needs to be a scout, someone who is really, really good in scouting. Well, the Packers have, I think, given permission. They've been asked for John Eric Sullivan to interview. I know he's going to interview with the Jets, and probably will interview with the other opening there also. Titans. And because he has connections there. And I tell you, he is an excellent scout. He's been with Green Bay a long time. He has moved up through the ranks. I've heard a lot of different interviews as they've talked about their scouting system. And this is a guy, some of the other candidates may be awfully good too, but this guy is an excellent scout. And so watch his name, John Eric Sullivan, maybe to get hired by one of these teams as a GM.
All right, very good. Also, shout out to Peyton Collins, EKU left tackle. He's down at the Hula Bowl right now, working each day and preparing, getting in front of scouts as well. He's hoping to be drafted this year. His teammate last year went in the 7th round, the right tackle, Josiah Ezrium, to the Saints, and so he's hoping to get drafted this season. So good luck to you, man, down there at the Hula Bowl. And then I know Jonathan Duff and somebody else, and now I'm mad that I can't remember who it is headed down to the Dream Bowl soon as well. So good luck to them down there also. All right, Dad, let's see your Sports Stove news. It's not the Sports Stove Fantasy Baseball Show anymore. The Belly Up Fantasy Live Baseball Show kicks off this week. We're recording on Sunday night. We'll be live actually on the Belly Up Fantasy Facebook page, and then it'll be available on the YouTube channel, Belly Up YouTube channel later on, as well as on wherever you get your podcast. You can search Belly Up Fantasy Live to start your fantasy baseball content for the year, because it is time to start preparing for that. A lot of things happening right now. And so I mean, my goodness, we are on it at this point for baseball season, for football season, for sports lovers everywhere. March Madness is right around the corner. A lot of things happening for sure. Check out our sponsors, Righteous Felon Jerky, righteousfelon.com. Again, use that promo code STOVE15, get 15% off your purchase. Follow us on social media at Sports Stove on Twitter and Instagram as well. Dad, anything else before we close out?
Nope, a lot going on. Be a great football weekend. We'll have a lot to talk about the fallout next week, I'm sure. We'll see if we have any coaches hired.
Yes, we will. Yes, we will. All right. Thanks for tuning into this edition of the Sports Stove Football Show. Until next time, we'll see you around the Sports Stove.